Hey everyone, Stacy Portugal here, and I'm really excited to be joined by my friend Jill Foos. Jill is a national board certified health and wellness coach. She is a functional medicine and integrative nutrition health coach and a carnivore coach. She's the founder of Jill Foos Wellness, a private health coaching business that virtually serves individuals worldwide. Jill helps her clients discover their unique health equation. Jill, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Stacy. It's a pleasure to be here.
So today we're going to be talking about something that I think so many women can relate to, especially middle-aged women, and that is hair loss. So can you first kind of share with us a little bit about your own personal journey with hair loss?
Absolutely. And it is an epidemic right now. I started losing my hair back when I was having all of my children, and I have 5 kids. So every time a woman's hormones fluctuate, she could possibly trigger hair loss. So I had the 5 kids. So every time I had a baby, it would trigger some hair loss and it would come back. But at the same time, I also had a partial thyroidectomy. So I had half of my thyroid removed. And that really set me off on a cascade of multiple health conditions to deal with, which I still deal with on a daily basis.
Okay.
So the thyroid and all of our sex hormones are very much connected to our overall health and wellness and how our hair can grow or not grow. So it was many, many years that I had to deal with this. And finally, probably about 9 or 10 months into completely reversing my hair growth finally. And it's not just one magic pill. It is a series of protocols to follow, something to be very committed to, diligent about. Compliancy is absolutely essential.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I just know that so many women listening to this can really, really relate. So the 2 things that you've talked about briefly so far are hormones and thyroid issues, which is essentially a hormonal issue. Is there anything else that you feel could contribute to hair loss?
Oh, absolutely. We've got our genetics. We have nutrient deficiencies. So what that means is on a cellular level, how well are our cells absorbing and taking in all the available nutrition that we're eating from a diet? So there's a lot of roadblocks to that, and everybody's equation is very different. There's stress. So this last time around, about 5-6 years ago, I was going through a divorce and, a lot of stress with that. I was changing careers. So stress is a big player. Exercising, figuring out what form of exercise is best for you. A lot of women, we wreck our bodies by over exercising, which is another stressor to our body, and that can trigger hair loss as well. Aging, just the aging process alone, going through perimenopause, menopause, being postmenopausal. Are you someone who's open to taking bioidentical hormone replacement therapy or hormone replacement therapy? So there's 2 different versions. There's HRT and BHRT. So are you open to that? And if not, how else are you going to support your hormonal balance? Autoimmune conditions are a huge one too. So we have to look at all of these different factors and what it takes to stay on top of all of them all of the time. It's a full-time job growing hair.
I've come to not just hair, but I've come to the conclusion that caring for ourselves, especially as we're aging, is a full-time job.
That's right. And hair loss is just a symptom of a larger set of health conditions going on under the hood.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So I just want to back up for a minute. And talk about some of these issues that may be causing hair loss. So you mentioned stress, and I totally am in agreement. Even a lot of people don't realize that besides, stress in your environment, in your life, over exercising can cause stress. People don't always make that connection. Do you want to explain to people how over exercising can cause stress, which can ultimately lead to hair loss?
And well, absolutely. Stress is correlated with our cortisol, our adrenal glands. And
Mhm.
if we overstress ourselves, whether it's through physical exercise or just a stressor that we're going through, like a death in the family or a traumatic experience you went through, your cortisol is going to be increased. And when your cortisol is increased, it puts a lot of work on the adrenal glands to stay activated and deal with that. And then, so you've probably heard of adrenal fatigue. So at some point, your body just can't keep up. And so there's going to be a cascade of other hormonal imbalances going on, and also a cascade of how healthy your mitochondria are. So the mitochondria are those powerhouses in our cells that produce ATP, which is our energy currency. And so all of the stress is going to make it so we have to have an increase of nutrients. And so if you're not eating a good diet, if you're over exercising and you're depleting yourself and not repairing and recovering properly, your mitochondria can't produce the right amount of ATP. It takes, like I was saying before, it takes a lot of energy to grow hair. So if your energy currency is low, if you don't have enough currency to pay for the hair growth, your body's job is to keep you alive. It's going to say, you know what, we don't have enough energy. So what are we going to give up here? She doesn't need hair to live. She's not going to
I
like how she
agree. I
looks, but she
agree.
doesn't need it.
I tell people that all the time, that your body's job is to survive.
Right.
And I don't think people necessarily make the connection between exercise and the stress it places on their body.
Right.
And, I so often encounter clients who think that they have to like run marathons, or really like they're like the hamster on the hamster wheel when it comes to exercise. They have to do all the things, they have to do it every single day. And what they don't realize is not only will this cause stress, which can get in the way of hair loss, but it can
Right.
even prevent weight loss.
That's
I think
right.
that's a very important thing. Another thing I just want to point out is that cortisol, of course, is a hormone.
Mhm.
And the fact is that all of our hormones speak to one another.
Yep.
So, when one hormone is off, you got to think of it like the fire alarms in your home. Okay, you've got a bunch of different fire alarms in different rooms. And when one fire alarm goes off, people may notice, I hope not, that all the fire alarms start going off, right? They speak to each other. And our
Right.
hormones are like that too. So even one hormone that's out of whack can make a difference. So it could be cortisol, but it could also be female hormones. As us women, we start going through changes for middle age, as early as 40 years old or earlier. And also pregnancy, as you mentioned, can
Yes.
start messing with our hair growing. I also think it's really important to mention, and I know this is true for me, I was losing hair because it is genetic in my family. Both my mother and my father, and I see it in my sister as well. It's in my genes. And that's another thing that people have to, realize, that, male pattern balding, these things are genetic. I just want to see, nutrition for sure is something to discuss. Just eating a crappy diet, and like you said, you're not getting proper nutrition, and it really takes being able to absorb those nutrients in order for our body to say, okay, everything is okay, you can grow some hair, right? It's
Right.
not like high alert because we're
Right.
not being fed well.
Right. So if you're a woman out there who's going through your midlife years and you're gaining weight, and so you think to yourself, well, let's go back to that 1950s model of eat less and move more.
Totally.
Right. And so calories in, the calories out. So you have women who are just miseducated or very confused about how biochemical reactions work in the body. And so if you're exercising and you're overexerting yourself, your body's going to require much more in terms of nutrition, right? your protein, your healthy fats, all those micronutrients. Your cell needs more because you're outputting more. And so now we have a woman who's in her mind thinking, I'm going to eat less and I'm going to move more. So that eat less component is what's going to trigger different biochemical reactions and not support healthy hair growth. And then there's another, I just want to touch on one other thing when you're talking about the genetics with hair loss. So that's called androgenetic alopecia. And so that's the genetic component. And then there's the component with stress. And that one is called oh my gosh, why am I butchering this word? Telogen effluvium. There we go.
Ooh, that's a good word. I like that word.
Yeah, that's a good one. So telogen effluvium is stress related, and you can have both going on at the same time like I did. So I know through genetic testing that I have androgenetic alopecia. And then I also know that going through my divorce and other stressors in my life at that time were compounded together, which made it even worse for me. Plus my hormones, I started perimenopause and I was going through that physical stressor as well. So all of these things can be layered on top of each other. It's not just one.
Yeah, for sure. It can be multifaceted. No question about that. I think that's a really, really good point. And that if someone is really suffering with hair loss, they should not necessarily make assumptions.
Right.
You shouldn't assume that, okay, it's just genetic, and you shouldn't assume that there's nothing that you can do about it either, because there are some remedies out there, which we'll get into in just a moment. But I also want to point out things like an autoimmune condition. You mentioned alopecia. An autoimmune condition can certainly cause that. And just based on something we both mentioned previously, not eating enough can cause hair loss.
Absolutely.
I feel like women are under so much pressure to look a certain way. People get very caught up in the number on the scale, and they may not be properly, nourished. There are women out there who are just exercising up here and eating down here. And so they're starving. They're literally starving.
Let's just start talking about protein, for example, right? Our hair is made from protein, right? Keratin and collagen, and those come from animal-based proteins. So if you're a vegan and you're not supplementing with the proper amounts of amino acids, that's not going to help your hair loss situation either. And if you are eating animal-based proteins, and are you eating enough? What is that optimal level for you based on your goals and your age, your weights, and what's going on in your life? So there's formulas to figure these out. But what I see often with my female clients who come to me for hair loss is massively under eating their protein and their healthy fats.
Yeah, I agree. And especially women our age have been brought up with the notion that fat is bad, right? Oh no, I can't eat too much fat. I have high cholesterol. I can't eat too much fat because it'll make me fat. I can't eat too much fat because my doctor says it's not good for me. I shouldn't be eating meat.
Right.
And so I agree with you. There is a misconception about protein, and an even harsher and more dangerous misconception about fat, and the fact that we actually need fat in our diet. Fat is our friend.
Right. I mean, when our estrogen drops, that's when our skin starts to look different, right? Our skin isn't that plump, firm, youthful looking, glowing skin anymore. It's drying out. And so we all go and we get, what do women do? They go get fillers and Botox, and they try to mask what's really going on under the hood. What is the root cause of that? So again, another component with your hormones, and eating healthy fats in abundance is going to help create less brittle hair. Your scalp is going to be, think of your scalp as the foundation or the dirt or the ground that your hair is growing. If it's dry and cracking and you have dandruff, your hair isn't going to grow properly. It's got to be, have a nice elasticity and moisture to it.
Exactly. And that's what fat does for us. And
Exactly.
not just our hair, our skin, our
Right.
nails. It's good for our brain. It carries
Right.
nutrients. There's just a ton of things that
Yep.
we should all know about fat, right?
Yes.
So today we were going to share 3 things that we can do today to
Mhm.
start our hair health journey. So what is number 1?
Number 1 is don't panic. Don't panic.
Like it.
There is a resolution here. Hair grows very slowly, so it's not going to be an overnight fix, but there's always a protocol to follow if you get to the right person to help you. And a lot of people go to a dermatologist. Well, dermatologists really aren't trained to grow hair. That's not really their area of expertise. You need to go to a hair loss specialist. And so I help my clients with the lifestyle intervention, the stress management and all of that. But then I also help them navigate to a hair loss specialist who can help on the medical side.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. Because
Yeah.
that is important. That's
Yeah.
really important. And you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, a lot of people think, hey, I'm just going to go see my dermatologist. And a lot of people really do panic.
Yes.
Well,
It's horrifying. You're taking your shower and you have clumps of hair coming out and there's nothing you can do in the moment but freak out and panic. It is, what men can rock bald heads and some women, quite frankly, rock them too. But I don't want to be that person. I want my nice curls.
And I also feel like hair is kind of a symbol of youth.
Absolutely.
And it's very hard, as we're aging, that's like one more thing that can really bring us down. You're like, oh my God, I'm getting old. I'm getting bald,
Right.
And I think it's also really important, as you mentioned, that hair does grow in cycles. So it's important to turn to someone, an expert like yourself, that knows what they're talking about, that can guide you so that you're not panicked.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So what's number 2?
Number 2 is what we've been talking about in terms of nutrition, eating more protein, animal-based protein. It is in the micronutrients in animal-based protein, the amino acids, they are in a much more bioavailable form, ready for your body to digest and absorb and utilize over plant-based proteins. And then again, the healthy fats, making sure you get in all those healthy fats, whether it's fatty cuts of meat or fish or chicken, or if you like leaner cuts, then adding in those olives, the olive oils, the avocados, the coconut, just nice, healthy fats.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, they're all bioavailable. And I sometimes, I do keto coaching and low carb coaching. Sometimes people do come to me and they say, well, I'm a vegan. How can I improve my diet? My first thought is, don't be a vegan, but
right. But that's
and I understand it from a value-based perspective, of course.
Yeah, it's a good point to bring that up because some people that's just what they believe in, and that's where they are that's their box. So how can you help them optimize that box? And so I actually wrote a blog on coaching a vegan and making sure that they're getting all of the other nutrients that they're definitely not going to be getting in a plant-based diet, because there is a more than a handful of essential nutrients that you will not get from a plant-based diet, and they need to be aware of that. But there are some very healthy vegans out there and they can do it, but it takes a lot of diligence and a huge commitment every day, every meal to get that right.
Exactly, to get the nutrition that they actually need for their body.
Okay. And the supplementation as well.
Yes, for sure. So far we talked about not panicking. Hair grows slowly, it grows in cycles. Number 2 was getting proper nutrition, especially protein, especially healthy fats. Protein, specifically animal protein, is definitely preferred. It's just more bioavailable. What would your third tip be for starting their hair journey?
My third tip is to get a deep dive into comprehensive labs. So what this looks like is when you go to a conventional medical doctor, so your PCP, your primary care physician, or your GP, conventional medicine doesn't look at the root. They don't have a root cause approach like functional medicine. So often when they take annual labs for their patients, it's lacking information. They're not comprehensive. They're not full enough to look at someone's full story of health. It might be like reading a 5-chapter book out of a 15-chapter book. We're missing information and vital information, right? So when you go to a functional medicine doctor, you're getting a much more comprehensive look into, for example, your thyroid. So in conventional medicine, they might look at TSH and T4. Maybe you'll get a free T3, but there's other numbers to look at, right? And most people don't even get that free T3. And if we're looking at sex hormones, often for women, they don't look at their testosterone. Testosterone is really important to a woman's health. I had this woman on my podcast. Her name is Dr. Amy Horniman, and she's AKA the thyroid fixer. So if any of you have a thyroid issue, she's awesome. But she calls the testosterone hormone the get your shit done hormone, right? So it's our zest for life, it's our libido, it's our vitality.
Right.
And when that isn't optimized, it's really hard for us to stay motivated on our health journey because we're feeling sluggish. We can't build lean muscle mass, so we might not like the way we look. We're not getting those body composition changes, and we might think we're working really hard at it. So we want to make sure all of the hormones, like we were talking about before, are speaking to each other and working harmoniously together. And you can only do that if you're getting a very comprehensive look at your labs. So one of the things I do is I give my clients a lab list to take to their conventional doctor if they're not in the functional medicine world, and to have a deeper conversation about why they want to look deeper. We want to look at iron and ferritin levels, right? That's really important for hair growth. And we want to look at other micronutrients.
Yeah. I think that is really important too. Doing a deep dive into your labs. I think too often people think that, their conventional doctor, they know it all. And, but the truth is, as you mentioned, they're not root cause thinkers. That's not how they're trained. They treat disease. They don't treat wellness. And there's a very clear difference between a functional doc and a conventional doc. And I think that, it's okay to have a team and have both on your team, but I think having a functional medicine doctor that you can go to is really important. And so a lot of them work virtually because for some people, they're not in their area.
Oh, it's so easy now. When COVID hit, all these doctors went on to telehealth practices, and they can order the labs. If you live in Iowa or Idaho, wherever you are, and you can't get to them, they can order the labs for you and then have your telehealth consultation. And whether or not you need medication, if you have a thyroid condition or your hormones are out of balance, or supplementation, they can assist you via telehealth. So it's very easy, no excuses.
Love it. I love it. That's so true. It's so true. Well, thank you so much for sharing this wealth of information with us. One other quick question. Where can people find you? Because I know you help people with this hair health journey.
I do.
Where can they find you?
So I'm at jillfooswellness.com. And then I have an Instagram where I post all kinds of, I do stories on all the meals that I'm preparing and how much to eat in terms of your protein and your healthy fats. I'm always giving examples. So my Instagram is Jill Foos Wellness, Facebook, Jill Foos Wellness. And then I have a podcast called Health Trip with Jill Foos, and that's on all podcast platforms, including, it's also on my website. And then I have a YouTube channel as well, where you can watch me and the doctor. And I have a lot of podcasts on this topic with very well-known doctors in the field. The number one hair restoration doctor was just on with me last week, Dr. Bauman. And I had the founder of, and the developer of the red light therapy cap, which I use every single day for hair growth. He was on and talked about red light therapy and how it helps hair to grow, the hair follicles. So I have a lot of information on there about hair loss. It is a passion of mine.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we tend to do what
Yeah.
affects us. I mean,
Right.
for sure.
Right.
Well, thank you again. And I hope everyone that you will check out Jill Foos Wellness, Instagram, Facebook, jillfoos.com. Did I say that right?
JillFoosWellness.com.
jillfooswellness.com. And thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me.